Hi there, Jib, Musical Lady here. We are going to be flying out of Uluru here, Ayers Uluru, down to Oodnadatta today with a couple of extra flyovers. No stops, but it's pretty much a fly through. Welcome aboard. It's been a while since we've done one of these things. About 2 weeks, I reckon. So, welcome to Ayers Airfield. Hello there, Aaron and QF Aviator, Toilet, TK Army. How are you guys doing? I'm not doing too bad, still working at home. Our government here in Victoria doesn't like people going into work to work in an office when we can do it at home. So we're doing it at home. Evil Popo, g'day. Quippy. Brando the Mando. Yes, got a little bit of a show today. We'll be flying over Uluru and then heading down to a place called Mount Connor, which is a mesa. Often gets confused for Ayers Rock when you're on the drive out from Alice Springs. After that, we're going to be flying over what's often termed as the APY lands, the Anangu Pitjantjatjara Yankanjatjara Aborigine claim lands. It's a freehold land that's essentially owned by the Aborigine communities. We'll be then visiting or flying over, because he can't actually land there, the what used to be the township of Mintabie, and in fact used to be up until a month ago, maybe less than a month ago. There were still people living there, but the South Australian government has since shut that town down. You're not allowed to live there anymore as a white person. So essentially, if you're not an Aborigine person with the APY land claim, you're not allowed to live in Mintabie anymore. Back in 1978, the first settlers went out there and they decided to make a opal mine township. So they've been mining opals there since 1978, all the way through to 2020. And now they're no longer allowed to be there anymore. Brandon Mando on the first Musical Aviator stream. Good stuff. Well, I hope you're welcome and happy. Wonderful Bus 52. Good stuff. Fonda 1515, I think I've seen you before. Quite a lot of folk of you in here today. No, this is not Roblox. This is what it says it is. A flight simulator called Prepared 3D, version 4.5. And this thing here in front of you is a Piper Cherokee. No, it's not. It's a Piper Comanche. I'm going to say that a few times. It's a Piper thing that starts with C. And I've flown a Cherokee before in the real world, so Comanche. I've never flown one of these in the real world. Let's open the door. It's only one of them. Just going to pick that up again. Thanks, door. Don't want that spread all over the front like that. Alright, doors open, and let's jump on. Apparently I don't have all of my stuff set up for this aircraft, so we need buttons and switches. Profile set. And that's not the switch that I was after. Should have done this before, eh? And I want that to be the trim. Actually, it's going to be this button. And that one's going to be that button. That's more like it. Man, it's been a while since I've flown this aircraft. It's probably going to be quite difficult to start because it's kind of you know, very, very cold. Anyhow, we're going to drop the flaps. And we'll do a walk around. It's in good shape, but it hasn't been started for ever so long. Flaps are good, looking good. All of the attachment points are attached. Elevators are happy. Got plenty of fuel in that thing, and it's all actually fuel. Tie down is off. Wheel chocks are off. Bunch of fuel at the top. No water in the fuel drain. Hey, we had 997, g'day. Oil, looking good. Nice and light as well. Cool. Tie downs are removed. Pitot probe is done. Store warning system. Out here we just want to make sure the fuel is there and all fuel. Making sure that is good to go and all the movements are there. Cool. The static port. Last tie down, make sure that the elevator moves up and down. Bit trim system's good. Key. And we are done. Making sure all of that's tied in properly so we don't end up wearing our yoke like we did last time. Cool. So, someone just mentioned that I'm not on vatsim. Good catch. Should be Delta Oscar Echo or a B. No, we're not. PA 24. And on we are. Let's throw in a some kind of flight plan. AYE. So let's have a look at the flight plan while we chuck it in. So out of Ayers Rock, we're going down to Oodnadatta. Oodnadatta is Y-O-O-D, Ood. Right there. Not too much out here, but we are going to be flying a little bit off today. So after departing Ayers Rock, we might even do the whole tour thing. So we'll come out of Ayers Rock, shoot down into Ayers Rock itself, have a look around here, pop out to Kata Tjuta, fly overhead the airfield, and then straight out towards Oodnadatta. We'll fly outbound for 3 minutes. In fact, got to make it 150 knots. 1 minute. Then we'll cross the Lassiter Highway. And then we fly for 13 minutes at 150, make it 160 maybe. 12 minutes, and then once we reach a position 12 minutes out, we're going to track directly east for 9 minutes until we hit Mount Connor. Fly around Mount Connor for a bit, and then we'll head on down to Mintabie. Yes, the door is still open. We haven't started an engine yet, so it's probably reasonably warm out here. It's about less than 20 degrees there. It's not too bad. I think the maximum temperature out here today was 19 Celsius. We'll have a listen to the weather, and then we'll get underway. Just deleting a couple of things from the flight plan before we send it out. Yep, that's about right. Apart from the altitude, which should be about 7,500. And a speed of 160. Filed out. Cool. That's why I meant to carry a water bottle with you. 2 water bottles. One to drink and one to do other things with. Preparation. That's all. Hi there. Well, this little aeroplane is called a Piper Comanche by Air2A. Single door, single engine. 3 blades on the prop. It should be being able to fly at about 160 knots. Ground speed. So it'll be about 150 knots airspeed. Cool. Let's close this stuff. Window open. As I said, it's going to be a little bit tough getting the engine started today because it's been sitting at idle for so long. Need to double check which is the throttle, which is the... oh, there we go. That's the brakes. Right there. There's the throttle. There's the prop. That's the carby heat. Let's grab the primer. Checking down here, we need to make sure that our tanks are on, and they are indeed on. We're on the inners for the moment, for the start. Master switch is in, fuel pump on. 3 shots of primer. Good to go, lock the primer in. Pump is off. Actually needs to be pump on for a couple of seconds. Make sure that rises. Yes, it is. Inch or so of travel on there. Make sure that the prop is set. Clear prop. And we press this thing for the start. Fingers crossed. Wasn't too bad. Wasn't too bad. Yeah. Alright, let's get our avionics on. Correct, Lachlan. It's the last bit that's the problem. Actually, repetitive is pretty boring as well. Anyway, we need to look at this, make sure that we have our DG heading selected as the same as our actual compass heading, which is showing 125, 126, something along that line. About there. Uncaged. Let's close this up. And we're going to chuck in a direct to Oodnadatta. I agree, Lachlan. Good catch. Good catch indeed. 279 nautical miles. Oh, we haven't even started the flight plan yet. We're going to be flying out to the full tour, coming back overhead, and then off we go. Going to set at 1000 RPM. Going to reduce my mixture a little bit, just until the prop RPM starts moving around a little bit. There it is. Give it back, 1000 RPM. And let's have a listen to the ATIS. AWIS, sorry. So Ayers rock. Meteorological conditions from the AWIS. Other A2A flight reviews will be flying from Ayers rock to Oodnadatta. I'm going to be making some fly rounds of Uluru, Mount Kata and Mintabie.
Automated Weather Information Service, Uluru Airport, time 0811 Zulu, wind 110 degrees magnetic at 9 knots, visibility 25 kilometers, cloud clear below 10,000 feet, temperature 19, dew point -5, QNH 1025 hectopascals, rainfall last 10 minutes nil. Automated Weather Information Service, Uluru Airport, time 0811 Zulu, wind 110 degrees magnetic at 9.
Okay, wind 110 degrees at 9 knots, QNH 1025. Ah, I muted myself. Apologies for that. Don't know when I muted myself. May have been a while back.
Trent, if you can hear me, your mic's dead. I can't even hear you on vPilot.
Copy that. Fixed now. I think they're doing a run up, so we can probably, what do you reckon, go up there? That's 5,700 kg. Ooh, he's entering from that position. Nice. Alright, park and brake is set. Let's just double check our oil pressure and temperature. It's in the green, that's in the green too. Mixture fully rich. Let's give it 2000 RPM. Magneto switch. Stable, nice drop. Carb heat. Looking good. And prop RPM. That's doing well. Back to 1,000. Don't need flaps for takeoff. Just looking down here. Strobe lights on, beacon is in. And we'll have a fuel pump before we take off. Alright, short briefing. If we do need to leave the aircraft, it's through the only door that we have. If there's an emergency landing, I'll ask that you possibly open the door yourself, otherwise I'll give you instructions. Once we do leave the aircraft, walk down the wing on the black section and make your way to the tower.
Traffic Gas Rock, Charlie Echo Alpha is departing runway 13 for departure, VFR departure towards Ayers Rock for the fly around thingies, whatever they're called.
Parking brake released. Come to a stop here. Best plane simulator seems to be the good old argument between X-Plane and Prepared 3D at the moment. Ask again in 6 months and that will almost certainly have changed. almost certain.
Traffic.
I think we'll take the longer one. Stay on the taxiway, that'd be great.
Traffic, Ayers Rock, Charlie Echo Alpha is climbing through 2,600 for 3,500 for the fly around thingies direct Uluru.
Ayers Rock traffic, Delta Oscar Echo is a Piper Comanche entering runway 13 at Ayers Rock. We're departing southbound to enter the VFR scenic routes via the Rock. Ayers Rock traffic. Okay, mixture fully rich, pump is in, and off we go.
Trent, you're still not transmitting on vPilot.
Knots, off we go. And gear coming up. And I need to do something in this thing still. Buttons. Traffic Ayers Rock Aerodrome, Delta Oscar Echo left Ayers Rock Aerodrome at time 24, tracking via the VFR route to the Rock.
I can hear it now, Trent. Well done on fixing that.
We'll stick the RPM at 2400 for now. And we're on climb to 4000. Yep, 4,000 feet. Damn. Right, my trim button on my yoke doesn't actually work at the moment, so I'm going to have to use the keypads. There's 4,000, bringing the power back. Who got deleted again? There's a time and place for adult stuff, and it's certainly not on YouTube. That's alright, we have terms and conditions for that. What do you reckon? 2300, 2350? Okay, the rock inbound at 4,000 feet. Need to be over there a little bit more, so I can come around there. Correct, I do not have an OnlyFans. Nobody would pay to see an old balding fat man naked. I know it's the joke in Airplane. Have you ever seen a grown man naked? No, I'd rather not. Thanks. We can run heists tomorrow. Okay, we're on the inbound. The rock inbound, Delta Oscar Echo is 4,000 feet at the rock inbound, making a U-turn. And we'll call once on the rock outbound at 4,005. Hello, Ayers Rock, how are you doing? Stefan's allowed to make people pay? Isn't that on his, what's it called? That thing that I have that I forget the name of already, because I don't really care about it. Patreon. Patreon? That thing. Echo Yankee Zulu. Yeah, service is nice. I haven't been in one yet, but I believe I've had an offer to perhaps check one out after COVID, so probably next month or after that we'll start to talk about details, hopefully before Christmas this year. Unfortunately it's in Brisbane, so I might be visiting Brisbane sometime soon. Which will be cool, because it's the first time I'll have visited Brisbane in nearly 10 years. So time to get out and about. Aviator 997. Speaking of flying in the aeroplanes, when are you offering rides again? Spencer's allowed to say the word sexy, it's cool. You say it in the correct context, such as talking about aeroplanes as being sexy things, then you'll be fine. Yeah, come visit the new runway. Good stuff. Good idea. Visit a new runway, and hopefully I will have made contact with the owner of the Cirrus to have a little ride in one. I believe YSH is based in Archerfield, but I need to get some details to make sure that the offer of a ride in it is real. Create it into realness, we might need to spend some money. That's cool. I don't mind spending some time meeting new people. Yeah, quite a lot of bandit planes in Brisbane. I believe I'm still not allowed to go to Brisbane as a person from Victoria. Alright, make a... oh yeah, we have to do the backwards turn first. So we kind of go 90 degrees this way, then 270 in the other direction. So at 90 degrees off track, and then we can start our climb. $4,500, making the turn back the other way. Of course I lose all that lift as I start the turn. Wasn't prepared for that, and I don't have my trim set up, so I need to wind it back the hard way with the keyboard. $2,500 manifold. Yes, rock traffic. Delta Oscar Esco is on the U-turn at the rock. 4,500. Ah, you're talking about someone streaming scenery building on Twitch. That's pretty cool. There we go. The Rock and the Olgas. Let's call it the right name. Kata Tjuta. Leveled out. It's a bit of a handful with the electric trim not working. Normally I'll be turning, pulling and running the throttles and the yoke and the trim all at the same time, and the rudders of course. 4 axes of control, but in my current configuration I need to take my hand off the throttle to get to the trim. That's right, we'll be on autopilot soon enough. They have us turn southbound around the rock before we head out to Tjuta. About there before we get to the road. Turnaround point's about there. I do like the speed of this aeroplane. It's quite happily sitting at 155 knots. If you're not careful, it'll just go into the overspeed. I've realised why I'm having such issues with my control setup is because I haven't flown this aircraft since I've had this yoke. So I've still got all the old yoke's control set up. Traffic is Rock, the Rock. Delta Oscar Echo is the Rock outbound 4,500. Bradley Bodkin, or Bodkin. I am like the arrows. Not sure I've seen you before. How are you? Okay, 2500 on the manifold pressure. Once we come out of here, we'll scoot back to the airfield, fly overhead it at 5,500, and then get our autopilot on. Oh, your mother died. That's not a good thing. I haven't had a direct parent die yet. I've had all my grandparents die. But, yeah. If my mother died, because she's not in the best of health at the moment, yeah, that'd be pretty tragic. I'd probably take my long service leave off, take a month away. That's what my plan would be. So I don't think my dad would know how to handle the funeral arrangements, so I'd probably have to do that as well. But yeah. Losing a parent is one of those big things in life, isn't it? There's not much you can say, especially if you hadn't had, like for myself, I've not had a parent die, like a direct parent. So I can imagine it being really, really bad, but I haven't experienced it myself. Touch wood. I know I will one day, because they're getting old. I won't stick around forever. Even though I don't live with my parents anymore, I'd still consider myself, you know, relatively emotionally close to them. I know sometimes I go a week without talking to them on the phone, but Mum rings me on the phone all the time. You guys see it on the stream. Anyhow, we're flying over Tjuta, which will be like the third time in the last 2 months. Second time for this tour. Or is it the third time? Do we count that helicopter flight in the tour? I don't think we do. So for fixed wing tour, this is just the second time I've flown this area. Oh, you did not hear it on Discord during the heist? You heard a certain Matthew calling that time. Good old heists. Actually, there was one time when I was on a phone call and it wasn't Mum, it was another female. Mum doesn't know what a GTA is, and if she did, she'd probably disapprove humongously about it and tell me that I was a naughty, sinful boy. Okay, the turnaround here is towards Kata Tjuta and back away. So I'll know the history of this area, I'm sure. There's not that much. It's a very touristy area, so when people think of Australia, they think of that rock over there, and they don't normally think of this, but you know, the rock over there is pretty close. So Ayers Rock, Uluru. Recently, since October, you're not allowed to climb on it anymore because the Aborigine tribe that essentially owns it, the Pitjantjatjara tribe of Anangu people who own it. And if you're from the Yankantjatjara tribe, sorry. I might have that completely wrong. I'm sure there are 3 different Aboriginal tribes that kind of like converge on this area. The A, the P and the Y. Anangu, maybe that's the better term, because the Anangu peoples have 3 different language groups. Alright, well, just checking the fuel. Yeah, it's pretty even burn. And we'll start the eastbound turn. Descending to 4,000 from here. No overtaking in the turns. Olga's traffic, Delta Oscar Echo is on the Olga's outbound, descending 4,000 feet. I just leaned my mixture far too much there. Yeah, I've had a few trolls. A lot of them popped in the last couple of days. We've banned about how many people over the last week? At least 5 that I can think of. One of them today. Several on the weekend. I did a couple myself. So yeah, looks like they're still watching, which is funny. Imagine hating someone so much that you come in and watch them all the time. Like, I don't like you, that's why I'm watching you every time you stream. I'm sure there's some logic in that. It's probably got to do with having to stay at home during coronavirus. Anyway, we've had a few trolls. We've had one guy that invited me to take a ride with him in an aeroplane. So you take some, you lose some. Yeah, Uluru, you're not allowed to climb on it anymore. The ban went in effect, I think it was October last year. Driven by the Aboriginal traditional owners. They've decided that they don't like people climbing their sacred rock anymore. They never did, to be honest, but they didn't actually have the political power to do anything about it until now. You're still allowed to climb Kata Tjuta as far as I'm aware, just not Uluru. You're also allowed to climb Mount Connor, and we'll be flying over Mount Connor in a little while. About 20 minutes. Quippy, I don't know who's a troll and who isn't. All we can say is what you say, and if you say trolly things, then you'll be treated like a troll. And treating you like a troll involves banning you from being able to comment on the channel ever again. At least under that current name. There are some people who would go off and then create a sock puppet account with their many multiple email addresses that they have, because they're that sad. Yeah, Aussie Aircraft 98. That was an issue with climbing Ayers Rock, or Uluru. Very, very steep, and it's just a bare rock. So yeah, if you fall down it, you will get lots and lots of cuts, and bruises, and abrasions, and all that kind of fun. You may well need some medical attention by the time you get to the bottom. Oh yeah, but flooding the chat over and over again is all they've got, because they're that dumb. The mind of a troll. Traffic Olga's Delta Oscar Echo is outbound the Olga's, 4,000 feet, tracking direct to Ayers Rock Aerodrome. Look, I'm here to have fun. I don't care who is talking to me, I care about what they're saying. You could be my worst enemy. If you pop up and say, "Hi, how you doing?" and be really nice, then, you know, that's cool. Whatever. Ban the sock bucket. Ban the sock puppets. I know it's like a flood of sock puppet accounts, but whatever. If you can make them, we can ban them. Quippy, the most important thing is her personality and intelligence. Possibly in that order. I've dated many a body type. So yeah, that's the important thing to me. Of course, being pretty helps get that, you know, initial interest, but you can pass that if we're forced to spend enough time together, and even the most even ugly woman outside would, if I'm forced, well, have the opportunity to interact with you enough times. For instance, if we're at work, there's plenty of very plain Janes at work, and some of them are quite intelligent and cool. And I would count them among my friends. If they want to be counted among my friends, then they will be. Unless I think they're narcs. Anyhow, we're going to pass over the field, and then we're going to climb up to 5,500. We're going to track down that magenta line, and we're going to start timing things. I'm not sure how many females are watching this chat right now, but if you think that I was talking about you, I wasn't. We're talking generalities here. GTA 5. Well, I bought it when it was free just a month ago, but yeah, it's pretty fun. I've enjoyed it. I used to like City Skylines, but I don't have enough time for it anymore, so whatever. Uh-oh, I'm getting a phone call from a certain female. Overhead. Traffic Ayers Rock Aerodrome Del Oscar Echo is overhead the field. 4,000 feet. We'll be tracking towards Oodnadatta, climbing 5,500. Traffic Ayers Rock. Alright, on the climb. My yoke just dramatically shifted down. Power coming up. Trim coming up. And it's time to think about autopilot. Okay, time 55. And return eastbound at time 7-8. It is 8. El Pepino, good day. Keeping that climb going. All the way up to 25, maybe 24. Yep, good old Aussie land. So we're going to establish ourselves at 5,500. Pretty close to it now. And hit the old acquire button. Done. As I said, about 23,500 should be about the right RPM here. Trim desired. Trim given. And I was just going to check that cylinder head temperature and the EGT. Still coming up towards the peak. Now there's two schools of thought here. One of the schools of thought is richer peak and the other is leaner peak. And I've heard good reasons for both of those things. Anyhow, that's the peak. It's right about 14.5. It'll be 1,450. So I'll play it safe and just go richer peak here by about 20 degrees. Just like 747 Classics, I probably won't be buying them. Oh well. Indeed, Quippy. I think that's a reasonable question. Have I ever crashed one of these airplanes before? Yes, I have. I even have a bloopers thing about it. I'm wanting some down trim. There we are. Time, oh ho. On the hour, about 8 minutes, and we'll make a eastbound turn. Eastbound is directly there on the big E. Eight minutes. So yeah, I have actually crashed planes before in the simulator, sometimes accidentally, sometimes on purpose. Doesn't happen often, but it does happen. Oh, Glenn, what's up with that? I'm gonna remove, book using timeout. I don't think that Bradley was a troll. Bradley wasn't acting like one. He might be, but I don't care. He's just saying what? Deleted by the trolls. For some reason he was atting himself all the time, but whatever. And he was calling Spencer a troll. That's funny. Moderator, mod chat, there we are. Enjoy that mod chat. If you're in my mod chat on the Discord, have a look. Enjoy that. I agree. I don't think that Bodkin's ban was justified. I see it's just a temporary ban, so he can be back in 5 minutes. By the time I make my left-hand turn, we can come on back. Come on, day. Come on back. I can't speak properly today. There was nothing in there that was bad. I'll see if I can use my super mod powers to get him back. Apparently not. Time 05, return in 2 minutes. I have to reset my yoke. It's kind of facing downwards at the moment. Yeah, I need super mod powers so I can undo your doing, unblock your block. Unfortunately I can't do that, so I'm going to have to just wait for the timeout to time out. He's got about 2 minutes left, and he'll be able to type again. Come on back, Bodkin. You're not that bad. Yeah, I agree. Why was Brad banned? He didn't say anything bad. He actually was talking about trolls. He just had a simple misunderstanding about how mods work. Anyway, what time is it? it is time to turn to heading. Apparently only Lachlan can undo the band that he put in place. Which sounds pretty silly. I would have thought that the channel owner would have been able to overrule. That would have made sense, but then again it's YouTube, so why would it make sense? I think we see our mountain, Mount Kata, straight ahead. Yeah, bring it back, Lachlan. Repetitive is okay if it's not actually annoying. Lachlan banned it. I can see who banned it, but I can't actually undo the ban, which is insane. Even Lockheed can't bring it back? That's bizarre. Yeah, it was only temporary ban for 5 minutes, so. Bradley Bodkin. Indeed. Why were you banned? I don't know. We'll need to review that in the mod chat. Sorry about that, Bradley. Somebody's ban hammer was a little bit on point today. A little bit trigger happy. Sorry for what I'm doing down here. I just had to remount my yoke. It was starting to slip forward. It's got a little suction cup section. It just wasn't actually on the desk properly. So it's pretty close to it now. Aussie aircrafts. And then Aaron got you in the middle. The toucan has arrived. There you go. Nice toucan. Yes, it does look rather sus. It's like slaving away under the desk going, what's going on down there? After we leave this area, we're going to have to track direct to, what's it called, Mintabie. Hope it's still in here. Yes it is, look at that, Mintabie. Got some direct twos. Good stuff. No need to just rely on compass bearings. Speaking of compass bearings, we'll need to double check what we're looking at. Eastbound. It's definitely come off eastbound, so sort that out. Anyhow, this rock formation, I guess you'd call it, is Mount Kata. And the road between Alice Springs and Uluru passes just south of those salt lakes over there. So if you ever do catch a bus between Alice Springs and Uluru, you'll often see this thing and go, oh, we're nearly at Uluru. No, you're not. You're an hour away. So unlike Uluru, which is a monolith, a single rock, this is here is a mesa. So So essentially have a fold in the earth that pushed up, whereas Uluru is simply a rock sitting on the ground, partly in the ground. Yeah, no. So many people on tour bus. Jump with glee. Yay, there's this. No. That's Mount Connor. Down. So yeah, this thing is a mesa rather than a monolith. I like cats. I don't own any currently though. I have a family of strays that lives about 2 houses down, and they fight with the other stray that lives in the other direction. They tend to meet in the middle of, like just on my fence line, have cat conversations in the middle of the night. Yeah, it looks a little bit like the mountains in Cape Town. The real one looks a little bit, a little steeper at the top. I was hoping that would resolve a little bit more, but maybe not. I didn't type that properly. Connor, there we are. It's the thumbnail for today's video stream. There we go. That's what it would look like from a helicopter. Bunch of greenery on the top. Never had any pets. That's not cool. I've had a plethora of pets. A black cat. Had a budgie once. It was green. Could talk. The cat and the budgie used to hate each other. They did live together in the same house for a long time. Cat died at the age of 20. Budgie got left in the cage outside overnight and kind of died of the cold. Thanks, Dad. I wasn't even living in Sydney when that happened. Moved to Melbourne. It was their pet. Accidentally left it outside. Intriguing Aussie aircrafts. Someone owns Mount Connor, you can't go onto the land. You can almost fly over it. So, who owns Mount Connor, and is it Aboriginal land or is it white man land? Is it like Rio Tinto or something like that? They're not going to blow it up, are they? Big mining company. Oh, here's the thing that's been here for thousands of years. Let's blow it up. Pitch trim. Dogs in there. Strange ways. Cattle station. That's good. At least they're not going to blow up the mountain for no good reason. They're going to fly without their landing lights on now. How do you get the cattle to the top of the meter? Good question. Yeah, good dislikes. Just means that people who don't like me have come to watch me. That's pretty hilarious. Speaking of people that don't like me coming out to watch me, let's look at what's happening on Twitch. Not much. Alright, that's cool. Nothing is happening on Twitch. Anyhow, that's Mount Connor. Time to head down through the APY lands into South Australia. To do that, I'm going to get a direct to. Come on. Mintabie. Thanks, chat roll. Have fun. Yeah, the Comanche is a good airplane. It's nice and quick. I happen to like the VTOL a little bit better than this plane, but you know, they're both pretty good. That's right, good old switch. The desert. Twitch is about as populated as Mintabie is, which is to say not. Scratching sounds. Oh, ASMR, that kind of stuff. That's hilarious. What I need to do is push us into nav mode, but to do that we should be pointing in the direction we're flying. Let's do that. And high nav mode. Done. And I reckon we can start climbing up to 7,500. Because if we have a look at this, not that either, this, we are just about here, where the 80 is, just kind of south of Curtin Springs. We now want to be tracking this directly down to Mintabie, which isn't on the map anymore, but it's close to Marla. So we're flying down to roughly there, where the 500 arrow is, I think, just slightly north of the 500 5,000 euro. So at the moment we're in a 4,200 foot area. We'll be flying through a 5,400 foot area and past this 3,400 foot area next to Marla. Pretty long flight, not much down here except for open desert and the very, very occasional Aborigine incorporated town in the Anangu lands. Looking down on the map, we have ourselves a big white line, and that is South Australia. I don't think we've been in South Australia before on this tour, have we? We came pretty close to the corner between Western and South, but we were always on the Northern Territory side of that, so this will be the first new state we visit for quite some time. Let's head on up. So to do that, just going to disconnect the altitude, just going to play with our trim setting, start at a little bit of a climb, add a little bit of power, and just let it settle up to 7,005. Lachlan is a lot faster than I am, but then again he was in a twin engine aeroplane of some sort. I'm guessing it was the Beechcraft Duke, which has a top speed of 220 knots IAS, and it can cruise at like 20,000 feet. Spencer wants somewhere green. That's fair enough. Keep that climb going. Ah, 175 knots because you can't get your flaps up. Fair enough. I can't even go 175 knots flat out going downhill. I probably could, but you know, it'd be close enough to the red line as to not be worth it. Ah, the police. I'm not really sure about the borders because I don't live near enough to one, but I know in Queensland and New South Wales the borders are literally one street in the middle of... In fact, the border for between New South Wales and Queensland divides the runway at Coolangatta in half. Crossways. So if you land and touch down on, I think it's runway 1... No, it's the other one. Runway 32 at Coolangatta. As you touch down, you're in New South Wales, and by the time your nose wheel hits the ground, you're in Queensland. So yeah, state borders and police. Not really clear on that situation. I probably need to ask a policeman, and I don't know any. I kind of do. I kind of do. Or did. More than do. Is he still a policeman? Don't know. I may know a retired policeman. My mum used to work for the police, but that was in New Zealand in 1978. She was not a officer, she was just a civvy on the switchboard. Was it 78? Might have been earlier than that. Might have been even the 60s through to the 70s. And they moved and came to Australia. I should have been taking care of times, but we do have the interstate border. Here we go. We'll just select the interstate border, we'll write down the time, and then we'll make the calculation for the next one. Sorry about that, we missed that. Actually, we could probably figure it out, couldn't we? Connor, 8 minutes, 8, 8, 8, 14, 15, cool. 3 would be 15, 16, 17, 18. And we did lose a bit of time in there, so it'll probably be about 20. That's where the guess happens. And the interstate border will be 31. We'll see what the revised is once we get there. Spencer Packer, what's my favourite air-to-air plane? Now that's an intelligent question. I think there's a few different answers. My favourite plane from the outset is the VTOL Bonanza. However, Hotel Tango Mike is my favourite airplane because it's one that I've flown in. So, Hotel Tango Mike. It's also way too slow for this kind of business. You don't want to be popping around here at 105 knots. It'll take like 4 hours to get to where we're going. Whereas this plane, we can get there in about 2.5 hours. That's funny, Todd Inspector. Isn't it funny how a lot of the people that are like, you know, a bit too edgy ended up being cops? I think there might be something in that. And it might be why there are some protests happening right now. We've got about half tanks at the moment. What do you reckon? Push the outers out? Right gallon? Damn. There used to be there being a switch where you can see the external tanks. Where are they? Man, I'm not used to this airplane. Yeah, the 172 is not too bad. It has a proper autopilot as well, so you know, none of this having to climb with the yoke and then adjust the trim with the autopilot set. Bishoy reckons Moorabbin is boring. Sierra Uniform Tango. And alright. I've flown in Sierra Uniform Tango. Wasn't a bad plane. Wasn't a bad ride. I can see those mountains off in the distance there. Those mountains are in South Australia. South Australia starts about there. Aussie Aircraft 98. Never seen the inside. Are you talking about Sierra Uniform Tango? It's not too bad on the inside, but yeah, you're right about what it looks like on the outside's a bit rough at times. That there is Sierra Uniform Tango. Very old Cessna 172, like very old. And the flaps lever on Sierra Uniform Tango is essentially that. It's the same as this thing here. It's not an electric flap. It's a ratchet handle. It's funny. Time 33. I said 31, but not quite there yet. Oh, little airfield just out there. Bella, I think it is. Bella. Very small, tiny, what do you call those things? Freehold towns owned by the Aborigines. These are very different to the other Aborigine towns we've been seeing on the trip up to now, essentially. Always in the other kinds of towns, and we're in South Australia, by the way. We have just entered South Australia. A little bit behind the wing there. Time was 33. We'll log that. So the next one will be 44 and 54. So at 44 there should be a road that crosses us west to east. Yeah, all the Cherokees have manual flaps, but I've never seen a 172 with manual flaps until I went for a ride on Sierra Uniform Tango. I think it's a, what, 172B? Or might even be a 172A. It doesn't have an openable window on the passenger side, and I can't even remember, but I suspect it didn't have a back window either, which is bizarre. Yeah, Bishoy. Hey, if you invite me to fly to Melbourne YMML, I'll bring all the cameras that I can get my hands on. 3 that I can think of, plus my phone. Yeah, I do want to come. Especially to Melbourne. .91 nautical miles to go to Mintabie. I like that video where Stefan flew over Mintabie and he kept on pronouncing it wrong. Called it Mintabie. Like what? Cool, Bishoy. Are you on any of my other social media such as Facebook, etc.? If you are, drop me a message and we'll I'll happily pay half my way. Me as a royalty. Good stuff. See, half the people are thumbs down trolls and half of them are inviting me on aeroplane rides. Need to get all my camera gear into order. It's been idle for too long. It's sitting there kind of unpacked all over the seat, my couch. There's bits and pieces of it, I can see it. Need to get that organised. Gotta hate Corral when it dies. Good old Coatl. Bishoy, if you got one of those small audio recorders, the very cheap and cheerful way of recording audio is just to stick the entire device into your headset and then wear it. Basically, it will hear anything that comes through your headset. The better way of doing it, of course, would be to get a proper adapter, but that costs money. So you've got two ways: money, it'll probably sound a lot better, or throw a recorder into your earphone. It'll be slightly uncomfortable. You'll hear all the rattling outside sounds as well as it, you know, the microphone hitting your ear. But you know, one's cheap, one sounds better. Aussie aircraft, I have never flown into Essendon. That's a thing that I wouldn't mind doing one day. Yeah, we had the 970 up there. In fact, all of the Melbourne airports wouldn't be bad, just doing the whole round. I've done the Sydney airports, it's time to do the Melbourne ones. Hey Bishoy, if you ask Melbourne right now, like tomorrow, to accept an RAA, they might even say yes, because they've got nothing better to do at the moment. They're just sitting there in the tower watching their 19 flights a day coming in and out. It's like, what are you doing at 10 o'clock? Nothing until 11:30. What happens at 11:30? One plane lands. Ah. Yes, I should start flying again. You are correct about that. I wish I had the money to do it. Maybe I'd better get a better job. Better high paying job. Yeah, I really should. I mean, I'm not going to make a career out of it, but I can have fun. Through, you know, a couple of $1,000 a week, month. Coastal Rico Western, yeah, you're right. Or even get city orbits, do the whole shebang. City orbits, Essendon, take off at Essendon, go to Melbourne, Tullamarine, then go down to, I don't know, Avalon, see all the 787s parked up there. And go around the long way, past the heads. And at Tyab or something. Melbourne Tower, Jabiru 7090. Good old 24 dash blah blah blah. If you can go to Melbourne, especially now when there's nothing happening there, do it. Except for the cost. The cost is a bit much. Did Stefan Jury get back with that final cost? He said it was about 350 or so. Missed approaches at Avalon, why? do the ILS down there. Yeah, that is weird, isn't it? I mean, Essendon's technically more busy, but I guess Avalon has Jetstar and all the other airlines there, so you know. Fair enough. Instrument training at Avalon because, you know, ILS. I get it. I think we passed this road early. We're expecting it at 44, current time 42, and there's the road. That's definitely the road that I was looking for. Big dirt roads out here. Interesting fact, if you wanted to drive a car on that road, you'd need to have a permit from the Anandu people, the Aboriginal Council, because technically that land doesn't belong to Australia. So any white Australian person that wants to drive on that road there, you got to apply for a permit, you got to pay a fee, all of that fun stuff. Fair enough. Mountain waves over the Yuyangs. Renewing a medical. I've been there before. I got 3-month medicals when I used to have them. Now I'm about to turn too old. I reckon that'll be even harder. Fortunately, with the standard PPL single engine below 5 tonne, you can now do it with the cheaper medical, the Med 3. Those were good rules when they came in. Basically, if I'm medically fit enough to drive a car, I'm medically fit enough to fly a single engine airplane by myself. Need to look into that. Yay, more things to spend money on. Like having a mortgage wasn't enough. Yeah, that's the one. RAMPC medical. I can pass one of those, I know that, because I have. Road and marine something medical. I know it's got something to do with the road, like driving trucks, buses, cars and boats. So if you're medically fit enough to drive a car and a boat. Recreational aviation medical practice certificate. Yep, that's the stuff. And you just convert your driver's medical into that. It sounds too easy to be true. It's like, really? But there are limits. I think you're only allowed to take solo flights, limited to single engine airplanes below 5 tons. I think there's some other restrictions on it as well. But you know, it's cool. Bishoy's got the old colourblind. You do the lantern test, do you? Have you passed the old lanterns? Yeah, barely colourblind, so the lantern test works for you. I had a medical condition that removes half the sight out of one of my eyes, or the left eye. Every once in a while you'll... Hasn't happened for a couple of years now, but yeah. One passenger. That sounds fine. I need one passenger. And I believe there's some requirement to tell the passenger that you're on a lesser medical. I do indeed have an ARN. I can't remember it, but it's posted on my big notice board back there with my what do they call that thing? The student pilot license with the endorsement for the Cessna 172 fixed wing land, fixed gear, and yeah, I do indeed have an ARN. I got that in 2003. Hello passenger, how you doing? I'm apparently not capable of getting a class 1 medical, and I'm only allowed to take one passenger. Do you feel safe? Do you really feel safe? Fortunately, most of the people that I want to fly with are either other people that are interested in aviation. In fact, if my passenger was also, you know, an instructor or another PPL holder, that'd be ideal. Andy Shingen, g'day. Russia's a bit different from this place, isn't it? This place is very, very desert, very, very remote. That is vegetation, but it's not exactly trees, it's just shrubbery. I'm not sure. Russia's a bit colder than Australia, but I'm not sure it's any more particularly densely populated than Australia. You guys have all of those independent oblasts out in the east, so that's a little bit like what we're flying over now. Centre of Australia, it's all desert. The current temperature out here is 19 degrees Celsius apparently, and we're flying towards a closed town. That's a thing that you guys in Russia have a bit of as well. In this case, our closed town is due to native land rights and possibly issues with the transportation of illicit substances such as drugs and alcohol. I think we've had some Russians in the chat before, but they are pretty rare. I think our time zones are wrong. They're way over there in the about 5-6 hours of time zone difference between us. And that's Perth to Novosibirsk. I'm talking about like Sydney to Moscow, and that's like the other side of the world. Oh, you've got summer now and it's 20 degrees. Here it's winter, and in this location where we're flying right now towards Mintabie is also about 20 degrees. Not that we know, because they've shut down the weather reporting station there. That weather reporting station went down on the 21st of May this year, which is a grand pity. Yeah, that's right. They span like from Perth all the way to London. Large country, not many people living in lots of it, but you know, pretty cool. Interesting to travel that far. Not easy, but interesting. That said, where we're flying over now isn't easy. I wouldn't want to travel on the ground through this area. It'd be a hard slog. There's a dirt road. Good luck with that. It goes through a lake. That's a salt lake. Russia visits you. It's a pity that we're seeing less and less good Soviet aircraft designs. Like back in the good old heyday of the Tupolevs and the Ilyushins. Still got the Ilyushins flying around, some of the bigger ones. The IL-76. 76 or 74. Yeah. Good old heyday of the Russian airliner. Yeah, I imagine there would be. Big country, lots of nature. Had a bit of a fascination with Russia back in 2006, back during the Project Tupolev days, learning to fly the Tu-154 on Flight Sim. Almost learned some Cyrillic. Almost. Not really. But yeah, that Project Tupolev 154 was a very good flight sim project. I did enjoy learning to fly that. Didn't really get into the nitty gritty of it. I kind of stopped at the using the GPS to run the autopilot. I did recognise that they had the entire, what they call it, NVU system between the pilots, which is a really bizarre navigation system that used fork angle and gyroscopes. Like you directly control the gyroscopes. You had to insert the fork angle for radar and... Oh yeah, that's right, they used the weather radar as a ground tracking radar to detect what they call that thing. I just need to change my heading here in a sec. Why is it flying that way? Come on, autopilot, don't be dumb. We get along so well. Let's turn those 9 degrees. Ah! I think we have a fuel mismatch here. Yeah, I'd love to see a really good add-on of an Antonov. Or even the Ilyushin 76, that'd be good too. Cool. I think it's behaving itself now. We'll go hands off for a little while. The yoke is being pulled down by its own clamps at the moment. That's really strange. The suction cups come off slightly. Slightly, I mean quite a lot. Okay. Yep, OEJ will be retired once its D check comes up, which I believe was meant to be October. So I'd imagine they will retire that sometime between September and October. Yeah, my little suction cup that keeps the yoke kind of forward on the desk didn't just come off, it's unstickied from the yoke itself. So it's just like sitting between the desk and the yoke, getting in the way rather than actually helping it adhere to the table. I'll have to look at that properly once we finish this stream. Might need to take it off and re-adhere it, or take it off and leave it off, see if it works off. Probably not. Meanwhile, we're still on a heading. Indeed. Unfortunately, the yoke has ceased working. We are just going to remain on autopilot. I guess you could set up an ILS on this aeroplane, but there's no ILSs out here. The closest one would be Alice Springs, possibly Adelaide. I don't think of any others in between them. That's right, it's Andy. Yeah, that's right, you'd be kind of like late morning, early afternoon for you guys, right? I never expected that the little sticky bit was actually doing much, but apparently it is. Well, at the moment it's just getting in the way of correct operation of the yoke. Okay, Mintabie in 28 miles. We won't be stopping because the town is closed. No one there anymore. Let's just have a little bit of a chat about this town, Mintabie. So in 1978, the first, let's call them white people, white Australians, came to what is now known as Mintabie, because they'd heard of, well, they'd actually traded with Aborigines in opal. So they knew that there was opals out here somewhere, and someone found the opals. So they started digging around Mintabie, and of course, when you find a resource like opals, a bunch of people come out and they decided they wanted to try their hand at getting some opals as well. So they built the town of Mintabie in 78. And then in 1980, I believe it was, the APY Aboriginal Consortium of the three tribes, Anangu, Pitjantjatjara and Yankunytjatjara, came in and won a Supreme Court case saying that they owned essentially all of this land up in the north part of the South Australian state, right up to and slightly past the border of Northern Territory, including Ayers Rock. And yeah, so they claimed all of the land, including Mintabie. And in the 1980s, you essentially, from then on, had to apply for a permit to live in this land or even travel in this land. The stuff we're flying over right now. Very remote, not much happening out here. Back in the 60s, so the British were firing rockets out of Maralinga, possibly nuclear weapons testing as well. But yeah, so the British in the 60s were blowing up nuclear bombs and firing rockets off. In the 70s, Mintabie comes along and makes that mining town over there, and then in 1980 the Aborigines officially owned the land, except for the town of Mintabie. Mintabie said we were here first, not these Aboriginal claimers, and so our township is in fact ours, because they'd actually leased mining leases, so they've already paid the government for the right to mine on this land. And what can you say when you've given off a 30-year lease for mining rights? You can't just take it back. So yeah, from 78 through to 2018, all of those mining rights, particularly the 30-year long ones, were still in effect, or 40-year long ones, whatever it is. But in 2018, the government decided not to renew those mining leases. Yes, it would be a good place to hide a body. In fact, there was a murder of a nurse out in Fregon. What was the nurse's name? Gail something or other? Anyway, there's a nurse who's got a law named after her now called Gail's Law. Basically, there was a nurse working in the Fregon Aboriginal community, and she was on call, and someone came to her late at night asking for some medical attention, so she got the ambulance out and was driving out to help this person that had called for medical attention. And when she got to that location, she was essentially raped and then murdered, and then her ambulance was driven 8 hours drive away down to Kupapidi, which will be next week. Yeah, I think I did. I posted on the Discord ages ago the video about Gail. So Gail's law is now that nurses aren't allowed to go out into these areas as a single individual. They have to be escorted essentially for safety. It's a pretty scary place out here. The nearest police station to Mintabie is in Marla, and it's about an hour's drive away to the east. So if you're in this little town at Mintabie and you call for the police, you can wait for an hour and the police will eventually come, by which stage you might well be dead. Indeed, you'd probably want to be carrying something, even just to protect yourself from, dingoes. But let's be honest, the thing you've got to be protecting yourself from out here is other people. Because if you've got stuff and they don't, they want your stuff. Anyway, we're going to disconnect the autopilot and head on down. We're not going to land here. There used to be an airfield here, but they've actually closed the airfield, and that happened on the 21st of May 2020. So if you look into here and go, there's a Mintabie. Ah, good. Mintabie has field 404, page not found. Sorry, there is no field here. No more Ursa for Mintabie. That's going to pull back the power so we don't overspeed. We'll head on down. Yeah, this is classic Australian outback. It's more of that Ivan Milat kind of outback rather than, you know, the wholesome kangaroos bouncing kind of stuff. Okay, a little bit of an increase on our mixture, just so I can begin our descent properly. That's the township. So back in, I think it was 2018, as I said, the mining leases ran out in 2018 and the government wasn't giving any more away. So they essentially said they were going to shut down the town at the end of the year 2018. At that point, I think there were 30 people living in Mintabie, something about 30, and the last 10 or so refused to leave, and they actually put up a High Court challenge that went through to the end of 2019 into, I think, January 2019. Was it 2020? Actually, no. They started the High Court challenge in 2019 and it went all the way through to January 2020. At which point they were ruled that they do indeed have to leave this town. So the leaving day was meant to be in, I think, May. But then of course coronavirus happened, and I think there was a little bit of delay to the point that the last people are probably still living here, the last like 2 or 3 people. It's a bit hard to get information now, but essentially you're not allowed to come to this town, you're only allowed to leave it. There's a story that I was fairly well aware of. Back in 2013 and 12-13, I was working for what was then known as the DBCDE, or the Department of the Broadcasting, Digital, all that kind of stuff. So we were converting televisions from analog into digital television, and this is one of the towns that had a television tower. So we had to send out technicians to Mintabie to convert their town from an analog TV station into receiving digital, and we had to do it via satellite link. And we had to pinpoint all of the actual properties, houses that had people living in them. It's only about 40 places at that time. But yeah, I remember we handed that off to a special officer to handle, but apparently the store owner of the general store down here was the main contact, and he was a bit dodgy. Turns out, 2015-2016, the guy gets arrested for having milked nearly $1 million off the residents because they did a payback scheme for groceries. So if someone came into the town for, say, I've been out here in the middle of the outback for a while and I'm coming back into town to do my shopping, and I can't afford my shopping because, you know, I only get paid once a month or something. The store owner said, if you leave your credit card with me as collateral, then you can come back once you know you have enough money, then we'll do the charge then. And apparently he'd been milking not much money off each resident, but a little bit. And over a period of 10, 15, 20 years, he'd racked up $1 million. So he'd like literally stolen $1 million from the town as a whole over a 10-year period, using that kind of chargeback scheme. So yeah, that happened. The other issue was that because this is a public road and a public town, because it's, you know, part of Australia, to get into the Aborigine lands, which is literally right in front of us right now. So over there, that's Aborigine land. You can't get into this land without a permit. But until January this year, you were able to get into this land without a permit. So people would bring their grog and their weed and their cocaine and their whatever into here, and then in the middle of the night they'd sneak off into Aborigine land, make a exchange of goods, and come on back outbound, and then drive away. And the Aborigines would suddenly have all this extra grog and other undesirable materials. As you're probably fairly well aware, most of the Aborigine towns are dry towns. They're not allowed to have alcohol out there, no beer. Whereas the pub down here certainly is allowed to have beer, or was, until January anyway. The main general store was at the front of the town right there, so essentially that building with the big white roof, that one there. So there's the general store, and I think this one here was the pub. So there's the pub, there's the general store. Most of these other things are privately owned buildings, houses. So yeah, a lot of people just drive into this town, make the four-wheel drive trek for a couple of hours into the Aboriginal land, and then sell off their grog. The township was ostensibly closed for violence, trafficking in illegal substances such as alcohol, and hooning. So apparently people used to come in here and enjoy a little bit of rough motorsports in potentially stolen vehicles. Another thing that's quite common among the Aborigines of the Anangu people is that they get kind of bombed out vehicles and then reconstruct them and then just use them. That's like, oh, there's a crashed car, well, let's take all the crash bits off it, rip apart the windscreen because we can't see through it, and then we'll make a car out of what's left over. That's meant to be there. Time 14. Marla should be 12 minutes out, so it'll be 26. And then the Niels River, 23 minutes thereafter. Alright, so there used to be an airfield at Mintabie, as I said. I don't think it's in the scenery, and it's also not an airfield anymore. It's been de-gazetted. There's one road out of Mintabie, that's it there. These things aren't really roads, they're just Aborigine tracks, really. You can barely get a four-wheel drive down those. Spot the road. Cool. So the next little township out of Mintabie, Marla, M-A-R-L-A. That's actually on the road, like the Stewart Highway between Adelaide and Darwin. Let's set that up for an eastbound heading. Heading should be 093. Got to level the wings, check our actual thing. Alright, 093, look at that. Of course, you get the DG heading swinging off every, like it just continuously processes because a spinning gyroscope isn't being corrected for well, it's just essentially a weight hanging down to make sure that the gravity works. How many people live at Mintabie? Currently it should be 0, but I think there were a couple left last I checked in May, so 3 or 4 people live there now. 2 months ago it was 30, and in January it was almost 100. So in the last 6 months, populations nosedived down to almost none. Essentially they've been forced out of their town, they're not allowed to live there anymore. A lot of them haven't even been given any compensation for the land. So it's like, hi, are you Aborigine? No, well get out. Can I get any financial assistance? No. That's a bit of bad on both sides, to be honest. Not endorsing stealing $1 million off the township, not endorsing running drugs or alcohol into Aboriginal land, but you know, just getting outright kicked out, whether or not you had anything to do with any of those crimes or not. Seems a bit rough. I think I moved the DG incorrectly. It's 106, I'd say. 10, yeah, it's a bit much. Climbing up to 7,500 again, so I'm just going to move that forward. Give ourselves 23 on the manifold. Trim's a bit much, a bit forward on the trim. Coming up on 7,500. Coming up to the little township of Marla, just off to our left hand side here. There we are. Sudden pitch over. Ooh. Altitude hold. Looks about right, cool. There we go, Marla, M-A-R-L-A. That is the extent of electricity here in South Australia. Telegraph poles with electricity come up to Marla and they do not go any further. If you go further north than Marla, the next bit of electricity you run into is Alice Springs or Ayers Rock, depending which way you go. Marla Airfield. And those little two lines there are the north and southbound lanes of the Stuart Highway. Go south on those, you'll end up in Adelaide. Go north of those, you'll end up in the Northern Territory. And there is a railway right next to it. Actually, this one's the railway, that's the railway, and that's the highway. So the railway is on the west side of the road. There's the road out to Mintabie, closed road now, I'd imagine. So yeah, Marla, you can stop there on the road journey upwards. You'll have a service station and a roadhouse, a couple of motels, a little bit of a population, mostly Aborigine, but this town is in fact a normal town. You can just drive there. stay there overnight. You don't need a permit. To go any of those dirt roads out of Marla to the east or to the west, you will need a permit. Yes, the Marla International Airport, right there. Yeah, we've passed that. We need to come back to the centre. So Marla, what time have we put in? 26. She ended up being 22. Because we was at 100 knots. Should be 160. There we go. 22 it is. The next one is the Niels River. There's pretty much nothing between us and the Niels River, and then Oodnadatta after that. 22 for 23. 45. 8:45, and we'll be on the ground at Oodnadatta at 2 minutes before 9. Cool. I'm going to reset my clamps again, third time in the trip. Yep, pretty much you need to have a good reason to go out there, or you need to have a sponsor. So I'm visiting blah blah blah, specific named person. And if the police are in the mood, they might even call up that person. Usually not, because you can't call them, but yeah, you need to have letters and stuff. The other option is if you're got business out there, although a lot of Aboriginal business, you know. Hi, I'm a miner. Can I come and explore your town? How about no? I believe they have a Aboriginal Cultural Office in Marla, so you can always rock up in Marla and say, hi, I'd like to enter this town for random reason, camping, whatever. And they may or may assess, they'll assess what you're doing. They may well check your vehicle for beer and other undesirable materials, and then they give you an exit date. So it's like, yes, you're allowed inside the APY lands for 2 weeks. Please report back when you're done. Yeah, it'd be interesting to come out some of these towns. Very cultural shocky, you know. A lot of those towns don't actually have any any electricity, or what electricity that they do have is essentially off generators. Some of them on solar panel power these days. Your nearest doctor is the Royal Flying Doctor Service. Your nearest police is good luck. Alcohol prohibited? I don't know. It's a thing that came through, I think, the federal law under John Howard. He essentially banned alcohol sales out in Aboriginal lands. And the Aborigines kind of went, alright, yeah, fair enough. I think the Aboriginal elders have been specifically wanting that, because they see their youths sitting around inside their towns essentially getting drunk and then wasting their lives away, instead of, you know, doing what they should be doing, which is obeying laws and possibly going out and finding food. Living the traditional way of life in a modern day. If I was an Aboriginal kid that got born to those kinds of things, knowing the things that I know, the problem is that you don't know the things you know, and there's probably a lot of peer pressure to stay in the town, like you're part of the tribe. And you don't exactly go and abandon your tribe, it'll be like abandoning your parents. Especially given the whole context of the stolen generation. If you go off, you know, looking for a better life in Adelaide or whatever, there's this feeling like you've self-stolen yourself, become a white man. It's one of those things that don't really have an easy answer, isn't it? Totally. Knowing what I know and being involved, like enjoying aeroplanes and owning my own car, owning my own house, having a job, being able to walk down the street and buy a pizza, being able to call the cops and have them arrive at my doorstep in about 5 minutes, being able to call an ambulance and go to a hospital and, you know, have the best care for almost free. Being able to connect to YouTube easily, having power that's like reliable and always on 24/7. These are things that people out here can only dream of. Out here you have to really fight for your next meal. Like you have these dirt roads, which I'm sure don't get much traffic, and what traffic they do get is probably, you know, medical services coming out to check up on them, or the voting polling booth that comes out. Yeah. When you're sitting at the other side of that dirt road, and the option is to drive the car that you purchased, that your parents purchased in the 1980s, to come to Marla to go to a grocery shop. What can you do? Difficult question, isn't it? Because they want to live, or some of them want to live the way that they always have for hundreds of thousands of years. Then you give them beer, and it's like, okay, they're drunk now. Awesome. Now what? As I said, they do have the opportunity, if they could jump into that car and just drive on to Marla, and then just keep on driving all the way down to Adelaide. What, 18-hour drive? In a day. Completely different life. But they have that, you know, that familial attachment to their family. And to do that would be essentially to throw that away. Say, hi, I'm leaving my family now. I'm going out into the big world. Anyway, it's not my my job to wonder how they live or condemn them, necessarily to praise them either. Just how it is. Okay, time 45, current time 30. We'll be there in about 15 minutes and we'll be crossing what's it here? The Neales River, N-E-A-L-E-S, Neales. Now, like everything else out in this part of the world, this river may well not have any water in it. In fact, that there is a lake, sometimes. Most of the time it's not a lake. You can see the lakes marked out on the GPS here. in blue. Nothing blue about these lakes. So I was talking about going lean of peak. So the idea is you lean off your mixture until you get to the peak, which you're not quite at yet, and then you continue to lean as the engine starts to run like with less power, all the way down until you're about 25 to 50 degrees under the peak. Now you lose a bit of power and lose a bit of speed, but the engine is running super efficiently at that point, and also cooler than it was at peak or leaner peak, or richer peak, sorry. Now some people say that's an issue because essentially you have a rough running engine. There she goes. Find that 50. It's actually quite hard to control in its own way. We want some up trim. Done. And you don't want to run it at the peak or too high, otherwise you're actually heating up your EGT, which then heats up the engine and your engine overheats and all that kind of stuff. But if you've done it correctly, which I believe I have, at the 50 degrees below peak, you'll lose a bit of speed, like maybe 10-15 knots, but also using a whole lot less fuel. Yeah, Renaissance, it is a bit unusual, isn't it? Anyway, we can see the RPMs jumping around. The engine's really not happy with us, so I'm going to give it back some fuel, and we'll go back to the standard richer peak. Now when you richer peak, you've got more fluids kind of around in your cylinder head, so it kind of lubricates it a bit more. And we want trim down because we've increased our speed by giving it more power. So yeah, we'll stick on to the richer peak side. We can give it full manifold pressure. Don't think we need to be right at the 7.5, maybe about 14. Yeah, about there. Cool, halfway. Back into the middle of nowhere. I don't even know if there's many towns on this side. Most of the APY towns are on the western side of the road. This is all what they call channel country. So essentially every time it rains here you get these big floods. That's why these lake beds are here, because all of these lake beds essentially become floodplains. And all of the floodplains here drain into Lake Eyre, EYRE, which is actually the largest size lake in Australia. It's also not likely to have water in it very often. Lake Eyre, of course, is kind of borders onto the Simpson Desert to its north. So essentially lake, salt flat, desert, sand, dunes. You just kind of go on and on and on, getting worse and worse, drier and drier, until you hit the salt flats of Lake Eyre. Harder and harder to live on. So As I said, most of the Aborigine towns are on the eastern side of the Stuart Highway. That's where the water is. Out here it's just run off into the salt lakes. Yep, very hard for animals to survive out here. You don't get very many large animals at all. Essentially you're going to get, you know, very small marsupials, little hopping kind, things that are about that, balls of fluff about that big, and lizards, snakes, spiders, spinifex grass, very difficult to live out here. If you look at the Google Maps or the Google Earth view, there's Marla. As you see, it gets progressively harder until you have this little bit of the river. That's the Neil River, which is less of a river and more of a wet spot where at least something can grow. Ah, Robert Lambert, good to see you. I mean, neglecting my Twitch, just looking at my YouTube chat. And there you go. Very flat. There's not really much in the way of mountains out here, are there? It's just pretty much desert plains. Technically this isn't a desert because it does still get rain once every couple of years. So according to the, I guess, geologists or whatever, geographers, what kind of land is this? I know it's semi-arid or arid, but it's not a desert technically. Time 40, and I think I see our river, so in 5 minutes we should be where the big E is, just crossing the river. Yep, a lot of Australia is indeed just desert. Lots and lots of desert. That is the majority of Australia. And big swaths of it, with barely a person living there. I guess that's why they made the deal with the Aborigines, to have those AP winelands in the far north and west of South Australia. No one was there anyway, so one little town of less than 100 people, sure, you can have that. Yep, more desert. I'm not sure if you're around for Mintabie, but we've passed Mintabie and passed Marla. Nothing between Marla and Oodnadatta except these flat plains of sand, of rock, or whatever that little bit of bushy stuff is, and salt lakes. This is the boring bit because there's literally not a town between Mala and Oodnadatta. There's just the Oodnadatta track, which is essentially the one road. Does anybody live out here? I suspect there's a few Aborigines that live out here. They're not in settlements, they are literally nomadic. And they'll hunt whatever game's available. I can't imagine their population density is particularly large. Yep, it is OZX, good old Oodnadatta. Mad Max country, you're pretty much right about that. Even the contraptions that they call cars out here are a little bit Mad Max. Modified, damaged, crashed, resurrected, rebuilt. Bits and pieces of cars stuck together. Yeah, you get this kind of weird mix of technologies out here. I'm demounting my yoke again just for a little while. I'll have to look at making sure that I can mount it properly in the future. But for now, just to make sure that the suction pad is on. It's mostly on. And slip it in. There we go. Lachlan wanting to control. Oh well. Might have to consider the old jockey strap method again. We'll see how that goes. Revan from Lilydale. Good stuff. I wonder if I need to push it back a bit further in the scheme of things. Time 45, we're pretty much over the river. Not that you'd be able to tell. And time 58 on the hour. We'll call it on the hour at Oodnadatta. Okay, Oodnadatta. Runway 13 and 31, much the same as it was in Ayers Rock. When we get close to Wessendon, I don't know. We need to go to Tasmania first. So we're going to go through Victoria. Probably shoot down past Moorabbin into Tasmania, all the way down to the south tip of Tasmania, and then back up through Hobart, up through Flinders Island, and from Flinders Island up to Yarram, and inbound from there, maybe through the through that little gap near Maui. Lilydale, probably a full lap of Melbourne. So that'll be Avalon down to Barwon Heads, crossing the Mornington Peninsula, Tyab to Radden, Coldstream, Lilydale, possibly even as far up north as Mangalore, and then back down south into Essendon from there. Yeah, Point Cook, good point. Because I believe we have a Mangalore on the OZX stuff. It's not a particularly good Mangalore, but it is one. It exists. It's there. Weather diversion, Latrobe Valley. Out of Latrobe Valley, halfway to Lilydale, and back to Latrobe Valley again. Spencer would know all about that. Cool. I'll push the yoke back as far as it can go, and it feels like it's pretty much staying solid this time. What do you think about that? Yeah. Ah yes, choosing a good time to fly. "24 miles out, 58 with 10 minutes out." So let's have a listen to Oodnadatta, Ayers 088, because we're in South Australia. Gotta love the change of state code.
Automated Weather Information Service, Oodnadatta Airport, time 1049 Zulu, wind 140 degrees magnetic at 5 knots, temperature 12, dew point -3, QNH 1028 hectopascals, rainfall last 10 minutes nil.
Cool, so wind 140 at 5, we're going to be using runway 13, temperature 12. And QNH 1028. We'll be flying over that way, so coming in from the east. Yeah, I think we'll just join a standard downwind, left-hand downwind on the runway 13, sorry. And the CETA 126.7. Oodnadatta Multicom. And that is what they call a river. Rainfall last 10 minutes, nil. Yes, in Ireland it'd be different, but in Australia it could be rainfall last 10 weeks, nil. Why did Callum have to make a rhyme? could have been worse. He could have made a rhyme with your name. That would have been better. Can't think of one at the moment, but you know. Congratulations to Lachlan Boyd, who's something toyed. The entire rhyme. One of those Irish poems about Lachlan Boyd. 14 miles out, we're going to start the descent now. Auto parts off. Power's coming back. Oodnadatta traffic, Delta Oscar Echo is a Piper Comanche. We're at 7,500 feet, 14 miles to the west of Oodnadatta. On descent, runway 13, estimating circuit time 58, traffic Oodnadatta. Here's where I just wish that I had the electric trim just on my thumb there, but we don't. So if you're in the real plane, we'll be using that thing up there, the old lasso. Cool. Dropped 1,000 feet. Gonna add a little bit of mixture into the fuel there. Descend a little harder. There's 10 miles. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Oscar Echo 10 miles to the east of the field on descent out of 6,000 feet. Positioning for runway 13, we'll call on the downwind. I believe I see the Oodnadatta township. And field insight. Yeah, if I didn't win the GTNs, I would have bought them anyway. You're pretty much right there. Especially after I flew with one in Hotel Tango Mike, the real one. Once I saw that thing, I was like, yeah. elevation is 386. Call it 400. Oodnadatta traffic, Delta Oscar Echo is on the dead side of the field. We're descending down to 1,300. We'll be then positioning for a midfield downwind runway 13. Traffic Oodnadatta. Speed's good. Mixture full rich, prop full forward. I don't know, I might have gone for the what was that, GNS 430 in that case, because the old aircraft that I used to fly back in 2003 had one of those. So did Uniform November India, the Cessna 182. So might have ended up with the Flight 1 GNS instead of GTN. And we can position into our downwind. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Oscar Echo turning crossfield at 1,500 and descending to 1,300 to join downwind runway on 13. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Oscar Echo is on downwind runway 13. Landing gear coming down. Gear down. And we'll chuck in some flap as well. Landing gear is down 3 green. Brakes, undercarriage, mixture fully rich, pump is forward, fuel pump is on for landing, lights are on for landing. Instrument is set and seat harnesses are secure. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Oscar Echo turning base runway 13. Full flap. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Oscar Echo final runway 13. Good GPS. Traffic Oodnadatta, Delta Gecko is backtracking runway 13. It is indeed a minus 69. How about that? Giggity. Where's the way off this runway? I think it's over there. Ah, right at the end. Cool. Yeah, I see it. CAQF. Indeed, get your English tests done. Not much to be doing here except for shutting the plane down and tying it down. At Oodnadatta. Some horses over there, or I think they are. Anyway, let's pop it in front of these sheds or this house or whatever this is. I'm assuming that there's something aviation related here. I want to stick my nose in the other direction. So I can push it back if we need to. 1000 RPM with the brakes. Cool. Pump is off, lights are off, strobe is off. Let's drop it. Alright, you can pop open the door. Thanks. Cool. And we shall pop out. As we watch the sun kind of sink a little lower into the sky. Let's get the dude out of there. Door closed, using the force. Indeed, we are just about to finish up. So the first thing to do is put the wheel chocks on. Which one's chocks? Come on. And we'll come over here and put on the pitot. Pitot heat over here? Yes, it is. And finally put the tie down on. Good stuff. So with all that done, Comanche is here at Oodnadatta. I guess we head over here, check in, see if we can get a ride into town. Thanks, Grant. A good old $5. Hope you enjoyed the trip. Anyhow, that's us in the old Delta Oscar Echo. We'll be taking this aeroplane back out again, I'm thinking on Tuesday, possibly on Friday. Oh, so again, Thursday or Friday. And we'll be heading down to Comanche, the rather famous opal mining town, where everybody lives underground here in Comanche. It's a fairly short flight between Oodnadatta and Comanche if you go direct. So my expectation is that instead of going direct, we'll come out of Oodnadatta and fly out to Lake Ayers, which is just here. That's Australia's largest lake, by the way. And from Lake Ayers we'll pop over William Creek. I don't know if we've got an airfield there, but I know Stephen Drury landed at William Creek on his Around Australia tour. So flying over the top of that on the way to Cuba. Comanche is a nice airfield. It's got an actual asphalt runway here, so it should be fun. We don't get to Parafield. I'm going to be flying into proper Adelaide, real Adelaide, mostly because I don't have any Parafield scenery. So unless we suddenly discover some new Parafield scenery in the next week or 3, we will not be going to Parafield. Pity, but name of the game. Anyhow, with that all sorted, I will wish you guys a good night here at 9 o'clock PM at Melbourne time. Till we do decide to fly again, which may be in a day or 3, I have been Mr. Aviator. This has been a GA Around Australia. I hope you've enjoyed Uluru, Mount Connor, the crazy former town of Mintabie, and Oodnadatta. Bye for now.
Boom or bust. Some people say it's hell on earth. Only locals know what this country's worth.